Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about health journeys, how microgreens fit into health journeys, and maybe a little bit about our personal health journeys and where we've connected with you guys on the same topic. So stay tuned.
Hello, Luke here at Back Mountain Microgreens.
I'm Gail, and recently one of the things that came up in conversation between us is that kind of the picture of microgreens on a plate. So we talk about microgreens either as a garnish or maybe, for the nutritional benefits. But regardless, there are few people that generally have microgreens as their entire plate. More commonly, I would say it's just kind of like a splash of color or a splash of flavor because they're so potent. And so maybe microgreens don't make up the entire plate for, a lot of people. Some they do, some they don't. So anyway, what that kind of gave to me in my mind is that maybe that's similar to the conversations that we have on this channel. So to me, that kind of looked like, well, maybe we need to talk a lot more about what really resonates with people. And if it's not over the top microgreen conversation all the time, maybe it's health. And so that kind of just led me into like how, we're going to share our health stories today. And, maybe just our channel as a whole. Yeah, our business is microgreens, but maybe we're not going to be talking about microgreens 100% of the time, because when you look at the plate in front of you for every meal, when it's a healthy meal, maybe the whole plate isn't microgreens. And so that's just kind of something that came up to me lately. And, just...
Yeah, I think it's a great point. There's, it's a microgreens channel. It's what we do, but it would kind of get boring, I think, after a while. There's only an extent of so much that you can talk about, but there's so many other things that we can talk about. I think what triggered in her head was we did a podcast locally that went well over 2 hours long, and it didn't even seem like we were in the room for 5 minutes. And
we could have talked for hours on that topic.
We could have kept going. And in 2.5 hours, maybe a half hour, 45 minutes was really 100% microgreens. The rest of it was just ventured out into so many different areas, but they're all connected. So in the personal health journey of us and the people that we were talking to, and hopefully the people that find this channel that are looking for something, and that our business can tie into that and fill your plate with more microgreens, or just add in there some microgreens to get you started for that, as Gail said, the flavor pop or the color pop or the nutrition pop that you're looking for.
And going back to the conversation in general, when we hear from, let's put it this way, like at farmers markets or when we're out meeting people, there's kind of one person that comes to mind for me that is really passionate about the conversation. And it's whoever has had a really huge health transformation. So maybe microgreens were a small part of that. Maybe they were a large part of that. We've kind of heard from both ends of the spectrum. But like, for instance, when, I had a full-time career outside of this business, when I was getting ready to leave, I had relationships with a lot of salesmen. And one of those salesmen shared with me that, maybe a year or so prior, he and his wife really decided to transform their health. And he was really excited to hear that we were in microgreens now, because, or that's where I was leaving to go, because that's what helped he and his wife transform their health. And for them, it meant being able to have kids. Prior to that, they had struggles having his wife get pregnant. And so it was really, a godsend for them that they were able to start a family. And by the time he was sharing his story with me, it was really nice to hear that they had 2 healthy kids and their family was totally different than what life was like for him and his wife as a couple, just a few years prior. So it's just the people who are really passionate about conversation and talking to us and sharing their stories. A lot of times it's about a health transformation. And so that's kind of just, maybe who we want to tap into a little bit with this channel, and maybe not necessarily the entire conversation on the channel, but definitely a big part of it.
Yeah, it's a health journey. Gail and I have, had a health journey. We've been married 6 years? 6 years. Almost 6 years. I was close. So, but we've had a health journey, and we've gone up and down. And I think that, when we make choices, we're the ones that made those choices. No one forced anything on us. We made a choice to maybe overeat or overindulge into things that weren't the healthiest for us. So going out there and having conversation with people and then understanding how many different diets or ways of eating there are, whether it is in a fast or a carnivore diet, a vegetarian diet, a vegan diet. We were talking to somebody and I mentioned the Mediterranean diet. There's also, Gail and I mentioned about our about story and our belief. We were very strong in our Christian faith. There's a Daniel diet from the Bible that's written out there. There are so many different things. And I believe there's so many different things, just like there's so many different flavors out there because there's so many different people. Mm-hmm. And our makeup and our DNA and everything is different. So we're not doctors. We're not going to preach to anyone about this
what you should do.
Right.
You have to do your own research.
Right. We're not going to tell you this is the right way to do it, because both Gail and I, even though our journey is health bound, we're on two totally different trajectories, paths to lead there. But as we even say in our Christian faith, it's to get to that point. Mm-hmm. We're
better health is the pinnacle, and even though we're taking two paths to get there,
we're headed in the same direction. Yeah. Our goal is the same. So, I think that's definitely a huge thing for a lot of people, and it really came up in the podcast that we did and talked in depth about it. The person that we had spoken with was a carnivore for over a year, but believe it or not, had implemented some microgreens into the diet for flavor and because they knew that it was easier on their gut. We talked to a lot of people where microgreens are easier on your gut. So whatever the path is that you're going, we have clients that buy from us, personal clients that we ship right to their home that eat a lot of microgreens. That's their main ingredient. That's the main part of their meal. And
mostly because it's gentle on their gut and not, it doesn't bind them up or things like that.
Right. So. And then we have people that just buy it for a little bit, to add to their meal. So, it all depends on what journey it is that you're headed towards. Same thing for restaurants. We have restaurants that use it just for a garnish. Then we have restaurants that are vegan restaurants that use it, again, as their main ingredient or a good portion of the ingredient to add to it. So discussing what's on your plate and everyone's health journey, I think we can talk a little bit about our personal health journey too and where we're at. Gail has talked about carnivore a couple of different times. I played around with carnivore for maybe about a month or two, but I very admit that I like variety and flavor. And I call
carnivore my dog food diet, that I could eat the same thing over and over and over again and not really get tired of it. But that only has worked for like a specific length of time, and then I throw in the towel. So
I admittedly throw in the towel because I love sauce and I love
I couldn't care less about sauce
variety. Yeah. So I needed to find something that worked for me. I tried different diets where it was cutting out carbs, cutting out certain things, and right now where I'm at is on an intermittent fasting that I only allow myself to eat right now between noon and 6. And in that period, a lot of people say you can eat whatever you'd like. I take it a little bit further than that, and I do watch what I eat. Not completely health-wise, but watching my intake of the processed foods and the garbage that's out there. So when I eat, it's more of a whole foods approach, where the things that are there are not usually from a can or a jar, or if it is, it's maybe a canned vegetable or something if I couldn't find it fresh, or a frozen item. But pretty much 100% just not processed or a not additive, a lot of processed sugars, things like that. So between 12 and 6, I just eat as I would anything else in my day. But then I cut myself off at 6 o'clock so that I get that fast before the time that I would eat the next day. It's only been a couple of weeks, but I've lost over 10 pounds. And I know it's because of that. I know it's because of what I've cut out, because eating all the time, and I would perpetually, we were busy working, and late night snacking was always a thing. And it was, I'm done, I'm relaxed, and I'm just going to have a snack, or I'm going to have a drink, or I'm going to have this. But that stuff just sits on me. Maybe for other people, they can burn it off, or they wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and hit the gym and burn it off.
You wake up at 4 in the morning, but you don't head to the gym.
Not the gym. I head to this gym here. I'm in our grow room, first thing in the morning doing stuff. So for me, that's my journey. That's where I'm at. I played around with carnivore. I played around with different diets. I know what's working for me at the moment. That may change. That can be something totally different, down the road. I may hit a plateau where that's not working, or I may have to implement or watch really, what I'm eating between 12 and 6 and take some things out too. So it's, again, that's my personal journey. That's where I'm at. And hopefully throughout these videos, you will see us, waste
Transform.
away.
Without AI.
No camera tricks. You will see us change. Because, I think one of the things that's out there is this is, even though it's for garnish, this is a health product too. So to really go out and sell a health product and not look healthy, you're really not gonna
not look, but not feel.
Not feel that way. It's you really want to be behind a product, and we are behind our product. We know what it is, but we also have our own challenges. There's tons of things that happen in our life that are stressors that change your mind or change your mood and change that diet approach. The kids made a joke that one day I said that I was on a diet and they saw me eating at dinner. It was something that I told them I wasn't eating, and they're like, "Oh, not today." Right. Okay. Well, and we get to that point, but the point is to get, as I was saying, this path, you may bump off, but get back on the path and head the right direction. That's really where it's at.
What about, I don't know how personal you want to get, but what about like the why? So before, if you want to add anything, for me, just recently and in our close circle of family and friends, we're seeing all kinds of health issues. And I don't know if it's just because we are not in our 20s anymore, maybe like we see it more now, or because maybe we relate what we're seeing to what we could potentially experience in our future. I'm seeing cancer and diabetes and mental health struggles, addiction, and it's just, I hate to say this like out loud, but I'm afraid of everything. I'm scared of everything. I operate through my whole life out of fear, which is horrible. I do not recommend it, but it's what I am programmed for, unfortunately. And I see these things and I just think, man, if I don't change, that's what I have to look forward to. And that scares me. Unfortunately, it hasn't scared me enough to motivate me to change up to this point very much, which, maybe I'll get to in a little bit after Luke shares more of his story. But like, what is the motivator for you with this? What is your why of getting healthy?
The why is definitely health.
You kind of touched on it, like the business stuff, but it's a lot of heart stuff too.
It's
like
personal.
Our
It's personal.
lives, yeah.
It's sleep. It's comfortable. Or it's being comfortable in your own skin, and that's putting on a pair of pants that are too tight or a shirt that's too tight, and you're uncomfortable not only doing that or feeling that visual, but physically it's hard to move. The gentleman that we talked to on the local podcast was over 500 pounds at one time, and that was it. His back pain, his leg pain.
Being sick.
Yeah, being sick is huge. Being healthy helps with that. Just taking the weight off helps the rest of the body. There's a cartoon movie out there called Osmosis Jones. I always relate to it because it shows the inside of the body with all these different working, mechanisms. And, the brain has got this, and the heart's got this, and the lungs got this. And that's true. I mean, it was depicted in a cartoon, funny manner, but I always look at things that way. And if you've got an ailment or something is sick, everybody in the body, I say everybody, every part of the body goes to work on that. So if you've got a bellyache and there's something sick in there, everybody shuts down or they throw some help that way to do that, which means that other parts aren't being looked after as much. It's the same thing.
And that goes for whether it's like chronic inflammation,
right? If it's
or
all
disease,
the time,
or whether you fall and break your leg or something like that.
If it's everyday pain, and say it's in my legs, and I do, I've had everyday pain in my legs and my feet. If I have that, and other parts of my body need to send help that way, then other parts of my body aren't being 100%. They're not being looked after. My arms, my back, my brain. Because they're devoting time to something else and they're really at it to try and fix it. So if I can alleviate that, then all the other parts of my body then go back to 100%. And then I don't have back pain. I don't, I'm more clear-minded. I'm able to make choices, on a clearer level. Just in these couple of weeks, as Gail said, that I was doing this, and I said I lost a couple of pounds. My chronic leg and foot pain it's not gone away, but it has lessened. So that's a positive, that keeps me not want to bump off the track. Several years ago, I took a fall at a job that I had. I took a fall out of a truck and really messed up my back and my arm. I still have pain from that. But as I go and I lose the weight, I'm less in that pain. It's working to the point where my body's able to fix all the other issues that are going on because I'm giving it healthy food. I am getting the sleep that I need. I'm not giving it garbage. When I give it garbage, it has to take the garbage out.
Garbage in, garbage out.
And if it's going to devote, my body's going to devote all of its time to take the garbage out, then it's not doing what it should be on a regular basis. And that's protecting me or helping me be healthier. So that's, it's really a motivating part to being better. We have 4 boys. I think we mentioned that in a prior video. Everybody's active, but our kids they're all teenagers. They're active. They want to do stuff. They want to be outside. They want to do things. I hiked a mountain locally the other day over 2,000 feet up in the air. And, that may not sound big to somebody who's climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, but it was a lot. And it was a steep incline, but I did it. And I think that maybe a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if I would have been able to do it, or I would have been sucking wind a lot more, on that trip.
Or a lot more worse for the wear.
Right. I didn't feel the pain afterwards. So again, it's to have a better life. It's to have a better lifestyle, healthier lifestyle that's easier on us so that we can be out there for not only for us, for our kids and for other people, and be able to put that out there in a video like this or the podcast that we talk to, and then somebody else relates and goes, wow, I'm on board with that. It's not just about microgreens. We always talk about
sharing ideas and like coming up with what works and what doesn't. And, maybe he says something and then, it clicks something in my head that I could share that'll help him or help me or whatever. And we're kind of hoping for the same sort of synergy with you guys. Comment, like, share, subscribe, whatever, and let us know, where you're at, because
let us know
we're all on this together.
Are you vegan, vegetarian, carnivore? Tell us. No one, we're all in the same boat. We all live on this planet together. It's about time everybody just gets together and accepts that there shouldn't be the hatred that's out there. Are we going to be different? Sure, we're going to be different, but accept the differences. It's what makes things beautiful. How many different varieties of birds are there in the world, but they all float in the trees together? There might be some predator ones that take other ones out, but it's beautiful. It's a great combination. And without the differences, I think all of our kids are creative, but some of them are a little bit more creative and artsy. We have one that's in art now. And if that was stifled and he wasn't able to express that, then where is he? It's almost like a health thing. You're crunched. You're put into a box. Why? Mm-hmm. We shouldn't be in a box. Everybody's different. I am not a vegetarian or a vegan by any means. My favorite restaurant is a vegan restaurant. It's fantastic. The woman has some of the best stuff. She makes the greatest things that I've ever tasted because the flavors are there. The spices are there. The idea of taking things that are different and putting them together just like all of us. And it's the same thing.
Between the two of us, we know, you could eat a salad and enjoy it. I can't because I paid for it. I just feel uncomfortable. So it's,
But
so
again, microgreens.
Yeah,
Gail has microgreens.
With no issue.
Doesn't have an issue with that. So, that's a personal journey for us. So, tell a little bit about your journeys from where you're at. You have carnivore and different things.
Let's go all the way back to the beginning.
Gail was born in 1980.
So I originally started on a health journey because years ago, probably about 12 years ago or so, I was dealing with an autoimmune disorder called hidradenitis suppurativa. It's a skin issue. And at the time, it was really debilitating. Good news is I'm over it. To make a really long story short, at the very outset of that, I kind of heard that foods like nightshades, so potatoes, eggplant, some common spices, any kind of a nightshade was really inflammatory. And, word on the street on Google was that, if you avoid that food, that it would really help with the symptoms. It didn't really help with my symptoms. The issue kind of ended up being stress, which is like a totally different issue. But that really, just doing the research for that, and at the time my doctors didn't know what was going on with me, so I was doing a lot of research on my own on the internet, trying to self-diagnose, and took that name to my doctors and said, hey, I think this is what's going on, and they agreed. But it was just really eye-opening to the notion that food could be medicine. And even though those changes didn't work for me at that time, it really just opened my eyes to this whole world of, wow, I didn't even know it mattered what I ate. And, as a young 20-something at the time. I didn't really care. My weight was in check. I was relatively healthy otherwise, and, it wasn't a big deal. But that always kind of sat with me. And so just over the past couple years, having like insidious, gained a couple pounds a year or whatever, and not being happy with my weight, somehow ended up on a carnivore journey and found that it really worked for me and worked really well when I could stick to it. I'm just unfortunately finding out that the way it works for me is to track everything, and I just don't really enjoy that. So I'm kind of still on the journey of trying to figure out, what works, what doesn't. And really, when I say that, what I mean is how to be successful without tracking, because I just don't want to track, but it's the only way that I can really make it work. So I'm still kind of on the journey of figuring out, how to just get that to work out for me in my life. But at the same time, just having the knowledge in the back of my head of, hey, I know that if I do this, it works. It's just having the self-discipline to do what I know needs to be done. And, just like I said, the HS was an anti-inflammatory issue. I think I have some other things that go on in my body because of the inflammation issue. And again, it goes back to kind of like I mentioned with Luke. He could eat a salad and be fine. My digestive tract does not handle that well. I don't handle dairy well. So there's like a lot of other stuff going on. But just in general, I seem to do best carnivore, and taking out fiber and really high fat has worked out really, really well for me lately. And the good thing for me is that microgreens fit into all of that. So I could take the awesome flavors that I love, like nasturtium or mustard, and, mix it in with something that's high fat, like an oil that, we could butter that I could eat with a steak or something like that. So it's really kind of like a comfort for me to know that, all right, well, people hear the word carnivore and they think, oh my gosh, super restrictive, but it is what you make it. You don't have to be 100% or all or nothing. I can kind of
dirty carnivore. I like that. I said that before, and just, I don't know, it sounds good.
Total dirty carnivore here. Yeah. So, yeah, but, it's just nice that I could kind of have that information in my back pocket. I know it works. I know that the microgreens don't hurt me, just like, the guy on the podcast the other week said. And, so it's, at this point, kind of just a self-discipline and growth thing for me to make the move to what I know works. And, it is what it is.
Gail touched on it when she said about stress. Part of her HS was not even food related, but unfortunately it's health related. And stress,
totally.
When we laugh, I mean, and I'm sure everyone's heard it out there, when somebody is stressing or they're worried or they're crying, or just calm down. Oh yeah, that's going to work. Because in this state right now, I'm going to calm down.
Yeah, it's easy to calm down when you're stressed.
But it's the truth. And you have to find your why that you're able to turn around to and go, all right, I do need to calm down and I need to stop that, because causing that inflammation inside of you can be caused not even food related.
But exactly what you're saying. Cortisol, the stress hormone, again, we're not doctors. I'm kind of saying this from my anecdotal experience and research and all that stuff. But when you're stressed out, your cortisol goes up. That affects your insulin and how your body reacts to everything. So even though you may not be eating a donut, your body is reacting as if you are. And so the systemic inflammation is still there, everything.
Or the fact that your body, you're not eating something, but your body thinks that you are. And now you've put yourself in this stressed out ball, where you're almost sick to your stomach.
Yeah.
It's not even, again, food related, but it's what you're doing inside your body. To close it up and sum it up is, you need, Gail and I are on our own personal journeys, but headed towards the same goal.
Which is just good health, naturally.
Right.
Whole foods.
It's not necessarily a number on the scale. Do we have a number in our head? Sure we do. But honestly, if we got there, we may not be comfortable there. Or we may be comfortable before that.
It might just mean like knees that don't hurt or lots of energy, right, or things
like
that.
What does one person say?
Non-scale victories.
Non-scale victories. So the number doesn't matter. It's what I feel. My legs feel better. My back doesn't hurt. Those things are more important than a number on a scale. Does the number correlate? Does it have something to do with it? Sure. But I'm not pinpointing myself to a certain number. Again, it's the whole coming together and being better around each other and being supportive. And we're here for that, to help anybody out that has a question or feed us information that maybe we don't know. And one of the most important things that I think I've heard in the last couple of conversations that we had with people on the news and on podcasts is, if you like this, great. If you don't, go on by. Nobody needs to listen to negative comments. We already said we're not doctors. We're not here to preach to anybody. We're here to give you our testimony. And in our Christian faith, people can combat the Bible all day long. But what you can't combat out of us is our personal testimony. And that goes not only in our Christian faith, but in our everyday walk of life that we do with our health journey and what we do. You can't tell me my testimony is wrong, because I lived it and I know it, and I'm living it every day, just like our testimony about our faith. So if you got nothing nice to say, scroll on by and watch another video and comment somewhere else. But otherwise, if you got something great, or you got something that we're helping you with, or you can help us with, give it back. We love relationships. It's what it's about, building and getting a broader scope out there with people.
All right, guys, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you so much for watching. And if you're interested in our microgreens, head over to our website, backmountainmicrogreens.com. You could find all of our contact info, all of our social links there. So thank you so much.
Yeah, have a good one.
Alrighty, see you guys.
Bye.